The Young and the Restless spoilers. Hello, I'm Nikki Newman. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. There are moments in Genoa City when power struggles look elegant from the outside, all polished glass-controlled voices and boardroom smiles, but underneath that surface, they are really family wars in expensive clothing. This is one of those moments. Lily's return does not feel like a homecoming. It feels like a storm crossing city limits with unfinished business in its hands and old resentments burning in its chest. She comes back not softened by distance, not humbled by what happened before, but sharpened by it. There is still something deeply restless in her, something unresolved and dangerous, as if every compromise she made, every humiliation she swallowed, every time she let Victor use her and then pretended she was still the one in control, has hardened into a single obsession. She wants Chancellor Winters not merely as a business goal, not merely as a strategic victory, but as proof that she has not lost everything that once defined her. That is what makes her return so disruptive. She is not coming back for peace. She is coming back because losing quietly has become unbearable. Give it to her straight, Devon. Lily will never have that company, but she didn't have to lie to her family. That got her nowhere, but looking like a fool. Victor got her again, and this time she used her own kids, too. Do dirty work that is just wrong, 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 and she will never be able to forgive herself. Don't see how she can sleep at night. She needs to be up, repenting to God. I hope Tess is pregnant with Daniel's baby. We haven't had a baby in years. Not that we ever see a baby or it's wrapped up so fake in a blanket. We need some happy times. The tragedy of Lily in this version of the story is that she no longer knows how to distinguish pride from purpose. That is where she becomes most vulnerable and, in a way, most infuriating. She tells herself she is reclaiming what should have been hers, that she is correcting an imbalance, that she is fighting for legacy, influence, dignity, and control. But beneath all those noble words is a hunger that has grown distorted. Victor has been inside her mind for too long. He has taught her to see every relationship as a negotiation, every hurt as leverage, every setback as something to be avenged through acquisition. That is the poison of men like Victor. They rarely ask people to become monsters overnight. They only teach them to justify the first compromise, then the second, then the third, until ambition starts sounding like survival and betrayal starts sounding like discipline. Lily does not return to Genoa City looking like a villain in the obvious sense. She looks more tragic than that. She looks like someone who once had a moral center and has spent so long defending her bad decisions that she cannot admit she has drifted far away from it. Devon is in no state to indulge her. That is the other crucial piece, and perhaps the most emotionally potent one. His life is already under pressure. Dominic's difficulties have been weighing on him in ways that go deeper than exhaustion. There is a special kind of helplessness that comes from watching a child struggle while the adults around him are forced to pretend they still have enough strength left to manage everything else. Dominic's problems are not just another subplot in Devon's life. They are the emotional condition shaping every thought he has, every hour of his day, every fragment of patience he might otherwise have offered. He is worried, sleep-deprived, emotionally frayed, and deeply protective. A man in that state does not hear Lily's corporate demands as mere business friction. He hears them as one more person trying to take from him when he is already stretched too thin. He hears them as disrespect. He hears them as cruelty disguised as strategy. And worst of all, because Lily is family, he hears them as proof that blood does not guarantee mercy. That is what makes the conflict so combustible. If this were only about Chancellor Winters, they could posture, maneuver, and threaten through lawyers and public statements. But it is not only about that. It is about timing, and timing is everything. Lily picks the moment when Devon is already worn down by Dominic's instability, Abby's fear, the constant emotional vigilance of trying to hold a fragile household together, and the lingering resentment that Lily has already dragged too much chaos into the family orbit. Personally, I think that is what makes Lily more wrong than she realizes. Wanting power is one thing. Choosing this moment to apply pressure is another. There is a hard edge to her behavior here that strips away any illusion that this is purely principled. If she truly cared about the people she claims to still love, she would know when not to push. But she pushes anyway, and that says more about the state of her soul than any speech she could give about business rights or strategic necessity. When Lily arrives, the atmosphere around her should feel immediately off, as if the walls of the place already know she has come to provoke something ugly. She carries herself with the brittle confidence of someone who cannot afford hesitation. Her eyes take in everything, but not warmly. She is assessing, measuring, calculating. She is not there to reconnect. She is there to force a reckoning. She starts applying pressure in the only language she now fully trusts, control. She reminds Devon that Chancellor Winters was built through shared vision, shared sacrifice, shared blood, shared name. She refuses to let him reduce her to an outsider in something she once helped define. She digs into every weak point, every unresolved grievance, every question about stewardship and loyalty. She knows exactly how to phrase things so that they sound almost reasonable while functioning like blades. But Devon is too tired now for diplomatic lies. That is where the scene takes on its rawest power. He no longer has the emotional energy to package his anger politely. Dominic is weighing on him. Abby is trying to stay strong, but fear has already entered the home like cold air through a crack no one can seal. Devon has been carrying too much for too long, and Lily arrives acting like the family company is the greatest emergency in the room. To him, that is obscene. His temper does not ignite all at once. It boils. First comes disbelief that she would even choose this time. Then comes disgust as he realizes she is serious. Then comes the old hurt, the sense that Lily still believes every room should eventually bend around what she wants. And then something harsher rises behind it, all the realization that Victor has gotten into her again, perhaps not as a puppeteer in the simplistic sense, but as an influence so corrosive that Lily now carries traces of him in the way she thinks, the way she pushes, the way she mistakes intimidation for strength. Devon finally stops trying to reason with her. The words that come out are no longer filtered by affection or nostalgia. He tells her in essence that enough is enough, that Winters is not prey for her greed, that Chancellor Winters is not a trophy she gets to claim just because her pride is wounded and her judgment has collapsed. He makes it brutally clear that she has already done too much damage and that whatever game she thinks she is playing, he is done participating. The emotional force of this moment should not come from mere shouting. It should come from release. The kind of release that happens when a person has been swallowing frustration for weeks and suddenly can no longer do it. Devon is not only angry with Lily for wanting the company. He is angry because she has chosen to become one more burden when he is already drowning. Lily, of course, does not retreat. That would be too easy and too unlike the version of her this storyline demands. She doubles down and in doing so reveals just how much Victor has hollowed out her instincts. Instead of hearing Devon's exhaustion, she hears weakness. Instead of seeing Dominic's crisis as a red line, she sees an opportunity to press harder. Instead of recognizing her brother's pain, she interprets it as vulnerability in negotiation. That is a devastating transformation in her character, because it means she is no longer just morally compromised. She is emotionally misreading the people closest to her. She has become so consumed by what she wants that she no longer understands what everyone else is suffering. She keeps going. She implies that Devon is being territorial, that he is trying to freeze her out, that he is using family sympathy as a shield to maintain his own dominance. That accusation is gasoline. It turns Devon's anger from defensive to explosive. The slap, when it comes, should not be written as triumph. It should be written as rupture. That matters. It is the instant the conflict stops being a savage family argument and becomes something much uglier, something that neither of them will ever fully walk back. Devon's hand strikes her face in a moment of total emotional collapse, and the sound lands harder than any speech. Lily's cheek burns red. The shock on her face is almost more powerful than the physical impact because for one suspended second, she understands that she has finally pushed her brother beyond his limits. Devon is horrified, even as rage still tears through him, because no matter how furious he is, some part of him knows that this is the moment everything breaks. Then the horror is swallowed by the force of his own anguish, and he roars at her to get out, to stop poisoning everything she touches, to leave before she destroys what little peace this family still has left. It is a terrible moment, and honestly, it should feel terrible. A story loses its moral gravity if it turns something like that into catharsis. Devon's fury is understandable. His exhaustion is understandable. His protective instinct toward Dominic and the household is understandable. But the slap is still a line crossed, and it should stain the entire aftermath. That is what makes the material stronger. Nobody leaves this scene clean. Lily leaves with her face burning and her pride in pieces, but Devon is left standing in the wreckage of his own self-control, breathing hard, shaking with rage, already knowing that his anger has made him someone he does not want to be. That kind of fallout is what gives the conflict weight. It is not just about who was right in the argument. It is about how grief pressure and manipulation can turn family into strangers in the span of a few minutes. Lily storms out, but she does not leave defeated. That is the dangerous part. Humiliation does not humble her. It radicalizes her. The red mark on her face becomes in her mind evidence that Devon has revealed his true nature at last. She will not dwell on what she did to provoke him, not because she has forgotten, but because wounded pride always edits memory. By the time she gets into her car, her outrage has already begun, rewriting the scene. She is no longer the sister who returned at the worst possible time to force a business war. She is the one who was cast out, disrespected, physically rejected, denied what she believes is rightfully hers. Her mind moves quickly, now not toward healing, but toward strategy. If Devon wants war, she will give him one. If he thinks family ties will restrain her, he has finally misunderstood how much she has changed. This is where Victor's shadow grows darker. Devon realizes almost immediately that the true center of gravity in this story is not Lily at all, but Victor. Lily is the weapon, but Victor is the hand that learned how to aim her. Devon understands this with a clarity that makes his anger turn cold. He can fight Lily emotionally forever and get nowhere because Lily is too deep in her own justifications now. The only way to understand how far this has gone is to go to the source. So Devon makes a decision that feels less like a business move and more like marching into the lion's den. He will confront Victor directly, not through intermediaries, not through passive warnings, face to face. If Victor has been filling Lily's head with promises, encouraging her ambition, turning her instability into leverage against Chancellor Winters, then Devon wants to hear it from the man himself. The lead up to that meeting should feel heavy with inevitability. Devon does not cool down on the way there. In fact, his thoughts only sharpen. He replays Lily's words. He replays the look in her eyes, that frightening mixture of grievance and entitlement. He replays the moment his own control snapped, and that memory only deepens his fury because now he hates not only what Lily did, but what she pulled out of him. Victor's manipulations do not only target companies, they distort people until even the victims become complicit in their own worst impulses. Devon knows that now in a very personal way. And that realization fills him with the kind of anger that no longer needs volume to be dangerous. He arrives to see Victor not like an impulsive brother chasing revenge, but like a man who has finally decided that politeness is over. Victor naturally is unshaken on the surface. Men like him build entire identities around the illusion that consequences stop at the edges of their confidence. He receives Devon with that familiar posture of measured dominance, the air of someone who has already calculated 10 moves ahead and finds everyone else predictable. He will not admit to exploiting Lily in any simple way. That would be beneath him. Instead, he frames his involvement as clarity. Lily came to him because she finally understood the reality of power. Lily was tired of being sidelined. Lily was ready to stop acting sentimental about business. Victor does not force people, at least not in the version of events he presents. He merely gives them opportunities to become more honest about what they want. That is one of the most chilling things about him. He often tells lies made of half-truths, and those are the hardest lies to kill. Devon refuses to accept that framing. He sees what Victor has done more clearly than Lily can. Victor found a woman already bruised by disappointment, already desperate to prove her relevance, already carrying resentment like a live wire, and he turned that emotional volatility into corporate pressure. That is not mentorship. It is predation. Devon says as much, not in a pleading tone, but with the force of a man who is finished pretending Victor's ruthlessness is simply part of the game. He makes it clear that Lily has become irrational, greedy, and blind because Victor has taught her to believe winning matters more than wisdom, more than timing, more than family itself. The beauty of this confrontation is that Victor probably does not even disagree entirely. Somewhere under the polished denials, he likely considers Lily's unraveling an acceptable cost. That is the cruelty of patriarchs who worship control. People are useful until their damage becomes inconvenient. Victor responds the way he always does when someone gets too close to the truth by insulting their emotional discipline. He implies Devon is letting personal stress cloud his judgment. He points to Dominic's troubles as if they explain Devon's volatility rather than justify his protectiveness. It is a calculated provocation, and it nearly works too well. For a second, Devon sees red again, but this time he stops himself. That restraint is important. He already lost control once with Lily. He will not give Victor the same satisfaction. So instead of exploding physically, he goes colder. He warns Victor that there will be consequences if he keeps using Lily to fracture the family and destabilize Chancellor Winters. He warns him that this game will not stay elegant forever. He warns him that once a family has been pushed hard enough, it stops caring about appearances. That warning lands because Victor understands one thing better than most people in Genoa City: desperation is when ordinary people become unpredictable. Meanwhile, Lily is not sitting still. She leaves the confrontation with Devon, convinced not only that she has been wronged, but that she now has moral permission to be merciless. That is a frightening place for her character to go, and dramatically it is rich. She begins making calls, quiet ones, strategic ones. She starts looking for financial pressure points, legal, leverage board weaknesses, anyone inside the orbit of Chancellor Winters who feels overlooked or resentful enough to listen. The mark on her face becomes something she keeps hidden from most people but stares at in the mirror when she is alone because it fuels her. It tells her she can no longer afford softness. The irony, of course, is that the more she hardens herself in response to Devon's outburst, the more she proves his fear correct. Victor has not just influenced her decisions, he has helped reshape the emotional logic by which she now lives. Still, Lily's tragedy should not be stripped of all humanity. Beneath the rage, there is still hurt, still wounded history, still the ache of someone who once believed family would be the one battlefield she could survive without armor. That is what makes her compelling, rather than merely monstrous. Her greed is real, but it is not pure greed. It is tangled up with shame, old exclusion, fear of irrelevance, and the unbearable possibility that everyone else has moved on without needing her. Sometimes people do not become destructive because they feel powerful. They become destructive because they feel discarded. Lily should carry that contradiction in every move she makes from this point on. She wants the company, yes, but deeper than that, she wants proof that she still matters enough to force the world to respond to her. Devon back at home has to deal with the aftermath on two fronts. Dominic still needs him. Abby still needs steadiness. And now the emotional contamination of the fight with Lily has followed him back into the house. That is one of the saddest parts of stories like this. Big family wars never stay in conference rooms. They leak into kitchens, bedrooms, routines, into the exhausted silence between two adults trying not to fall apart in front of a child. Devon has to reckon with what he did, and the guilt is real, but it is tangled up with resentment because part of him still believes Lily knowingly drove him there. That does not excuse him, but it makes his remorse far from clean. He is not ready to apologize, not yet, He is too angry, too hurt, too sure that Lily would weaponize any weakness he shows. So he buries it for the moment and focuses on the only thing that still feels undeniably real, protecting his family and protecting what remains of Winters from the chaos closing in around it. That is why this storyline works best when it does not pretend one side owns all the truth. Lily is wrong, badly wrong, in how she has allowed ambition and Victor's influence to corrode her judgment. Devon is right to defend his family and furious for understandable reasons, but he is also wrong for letting that fury become physical. Victor is the most poisonous force in the equation because he profits from everyone else's emotional damage and calling it strategy. Each of them is carrying a different kind of moral failure, and that is what gives the plot its bite. It is not just an argument over a company. It is a slow exposure of what happens when old wounds, fear parental pressure, and the lure of power collide at exactly the wrong time. So the road ahead should not offer relief. It should tighten. Lily should become more determined, more secretive, more willing to scorch what she once claimed she wanted to preserve. Devon should become more protective, more suspicious, and more resolved to cut Victor's influence out at the root. Victor should continue treating them both as players on a board, convinced he can still manage the consequences of their unraveling. But the danger in underestimating emotional fallout is that it never stays where you put it. It spreads. It infects loyalties. It turns private shame into public war. And in a family already strained by Dominic's struggles, by grief, by fatigue, by history, by buried resentments that have waited years for the right spark, one violent confrontation is never the end of the story. It is the beginning of the uglier version